Hey, what's going on everyone? My name is Donovan and tonight's video is all about the color red, as you can see, and specifically we're going to be doing an unboxing and first impressions video of the iPhone XR in the color red. So today was launch day. I picked my iPhone XR up at 8 a.m. at the Apple Store, at my local Apple Store. And let me just say this, I want to say two things before we actually get to the unboxing. Number one, there was a lot of hype surrounding this phone. So it was released, or at least announced, at the exact same time as the iPhone XS and XS Max, and a lot of people said that this would be the phone that everyone would be going after this year. There were a lot of YouTubers out there saying that the XS Max and the XS, because of the price, not a lot of people would be all that excited about it, and instead a lot of people would be excited for this device. Well, let me just say this. In my experience, so this is number two, in my experience this morning, that is definitely not the case. So I picked up my iPhone XS Max on launch day, and when I got to the Apple Store that morning of launch day of the XS and XS Max, there were about 50 to maybe 75 people in line waiting at 7:45 in the morning, so about 15 minutes before the store actually opened. And by the time I left, there were probably about 100 people there. So there was definitely a little bit of hype, probably not nearly as much hype as there have been for other Apple products in the past, but a decent amount of hype because at opening time there was about 100 people there. Let me tell you the number of people that were in line at the Apple Store at 8 a.m. on launch day of the iPhone XR. And the answer to that question is one. It was me. I was literally the only person at that Apple Store waiting for this device. And by the time I left at like 8:20, 8:30, I was still the only person at the Apple Store with about 30 customer service people from Apple at the store with me. So I had plenty of people there willing to help me, and it was just me. So there is clearly not as much hype as I thought there would be, or as a lot of people thought there might be for this device. Now, as we get closer to the holidays, the hype probably will get a little more exciting for the iPhone XR. There haven't been a lot of commercials from Apple yet for this device, but that's enough of me talking. Let's go ahead and turn the camera around, take a look at this beautiful device, and see what all it has to offer. Alright, so without further ado, let's go ahead and open this thing up. So I've had it literally all day sitting in this box, so it's time to get this bad boy open. So as you can see, I got the 128 gig version of the iPhone XR. So this was $800 retail, and you can also pick it up in 64 gig for $750, or if you want to get it for $256, I believe that one is $850. So in the box, you can see that there is a little product red slip there, also your Apple stickers and all the regular stuff. I'm not going to go through all that because chances are you've probably already seen all of that. Let's go ahead and remove this plastic, and oh my gosh, that's beautiful. I'm going to go ahead and power it right up right now. I'm going to actually be replacing my iPhone XS Max, at least for the moment. I'm not getting rid of my iPhone XS Max, but let's just go ahead and put these next to each other. That is just beautiful. I really like that red. So this is actually my very first product red Apple device. I was late to jump on the Apple train. My very first Apple device, I believe, might have been the iPhone 7 Plus or 8 Plus. I definitely had the 8 Plus, and then I jumped to the 10, got rid of the 10 pretty quick, and jumped to the XS Max, and here is the iPhone XR. So right away, you can see in terms of the size of the actual phone, it's definitely it's almost in a sweet spot, I think. So it's larger than the 10, but smaller than the XS Max, and I gotta say that's a nice size for the device. Now, obviously, the biggest complaint that people have, at least in the initial reviews, would be the display. So personally, I held this up next to my iPhone XS Max while I was in the store, not this particular device, but I held up an iPhone XR, and I really didn't think that it was all that bad, in fact. So really, in my thoughts, it really doesn't look all that bad. So we're just going to go ahead and get this thing set up, and we're going to come back to it in just a moment. Alright, so we're going to go ahead and set up the Face ID on this device, just like the iPhone XR. So let's go ahead and get this thing started. All right. And again. There we go. So nice and easy. All right, so one quick thing to note while I'm setting this up is that we do have True Tone available here as well, even though this has LCD technology, unlike the AMOLED technology you get in the iPhone XS Max. In terms of the display, you do still have True Tone technology, so that's great that it's also available here on the iPhone XR as well. And out of the box, you can see that it does come with iOS 12.0, and we're going to have to go ahead and download 12.0.1 here in the setup. So not a big deal, but unfortunately we do have to wait a few minutes here for it to update. All right, so while I'm waiting for the iPhone XR to update, one of the things I wanted to show here is the fact that there are some noticeable bezels, or at least larger bezels here on the iPhone XR, and that's all the way around the device. So you can see here right up in the corners, notice that the iPhone XS Max definitely has some smaller bezels when it comes to the edges of the phone. Now, if you're coming from something like an iPhone 8 Plus or an iPhone 7 or 8, the bezels aren't going to be nearly as noticeable, but when you're coming from something like the 10 or the XS Max or the XS, obviously those bezels are going to be much more noticeable. All right, so while the phone is still setting up, I did want to mention a couple of the other very obvious and noticeable differences. So obviously here we have two cameras. So we have a 12 megapixel camera and then that telephoto zoom lens as well. Over here, of course, on the iPhone XR, we do just have that single camera. Now it can shoot in 4K 60 frames per second. You can see we have our LED flash here down below the camera, whereas here it's in between our two cameras. On the front, we have the exact same camera, so there's no difference there in terms of the cameras on the front. But then on the sides, notice that this one, of course, has an aluminum side versus the stainless steel side that you have here on the XS and the XS Max. All right, so the iPhone XR is pretty much set up. So this is the iPhone XR, this is the XS Max. So I just wanted to show a few differences in terms of the display that I'm noticing right off the bat. So number one, in terms of the whites that you see here, notice with the XR, it's definitely a little bit more brownish, where over here on the XS Max, now I do not have True Tone turned on either of these, and on the XS Max, it is a little bit more bluish. And also the off angle, notice that it turns a little bit blue because that is that AMOLED display, whereas over here on the XR you don't really get that blue tint as you turn it, so that's just something that I've noticed. And then in terms of the font, that's I think where you're going to see a little bit more of the details. So obviously with the XS Max, when you get in on small font, you're going to be able to see a little bit more clearly. You're not going to get any of that pixelation, where over here on the XR you can start to see just a little bit of pixelation when you get right in on that font. Now, is it going to be a majorly noticeable difference? Probably not. Let's go ahead and take a look at a picture of these headphones. So this is a pair of headphones that I recently reviewed on the channel, and you can see here on the XR there really is some pretty good details there, and you don't really notice the pixelation there, but where again you see that difference is when you're getting there on small font. So if you have some really small font that you're looking at, obviously on the XS Max it's going to be not only bigger because of the size of the screen, but then also a little bit more clear just because of the more pixels that you have here on the XS Max. So overall, I think that the XR really is a really solid buy so far. Obviously, in terms of the processing power, they both have the A12 Bionic chip, which is easily the fastest chip you're going to find on any handset right now. The major differences being we have 3 gigs of RAM versus 4 gigs of RAM, a little bit different build quality. In terms of the size of the screen, obviously the XS Max has a much larger screen, but the XS actually has a smaller screen at 5.8 inches, so this is 6.5, 6.1, and then I don't have the XS, but that has a 5.8 inch display. And then obviously less resolution over here on the XR, but overall, again, it really doesn't look too bad in my opinion. This is just a first impressions thing, but I really don't think it's all that bad. And really, maybe the hype around the screen, a lot of people said there's no way they're buying it and it shouldn't be $750 because of the display. And I think when it comes down to it, I don't think you're going to see just all those pixels. So is it really going to make a difference? Probably not, but you know, to each their own. If you're a pixel peeper, then obviously the XS Max is going to be the way to go if you want an iPhone. So anyways, quick thoughts on the iPhone XS or 10R, I should say. And let me know what you guys think down in the comments below. Thanks for watching. I hope this video has been helpful for you, and I'll see you all in the next one. Peace.